So let's talk about Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is all about love, right? Well, today we're going to take a look at the dark truth behind Valentine's Day as we explore its pagan origins in the festival known as Lupercalia, and it's pretty crazy. If you haven't heard of it before, I think you're going to find it pretty interesting. So we're going to take a look at that, and it's going to be good. We're also going to be taking a look at a bit about the shadow self and the mirror self and how it relates to this day, and how we can explore it a little more in that context. Now, I do want to say that I don't necessarily have anything against Valentine's Day itself. I think it's really great for people to be able to have a day to express their love to each other, even though they should be doing that all the time. But to have a day to emphasize that even more, that's great. I have nothing against that at all. I think that's really, really nice. Though it has been sort of taken over by capitalism, trying to push people to, buy cards, buy expensive jewelry, buy chocolates and flowers. And, it's just obviously been hijacked by capitalism, which they've hijacked everything. So no surprise there. But today we are going to be looking at the Roman pagan roots of Valentine's Day, which is really interesting. But another thing that I would like to say, though, is that I think we can really restructure Valentine's Day as well in the future, in that it kind of marginalizes those who are single. I mean, you see, it's kind of if you're single, it can be a kind of a shitty day. And you can see this a lot if you look at different posts, people who are, very bitter about it and angry. And, I completely understand and get it. So really what would be great in the future is to be able to incorporate some elements to the fact where not only could people who are, together express love to each other, but also something for those who aren't in a relationship or in relationships, and we could have it dealing with either the shadow self or the mirror self. I think the fact that the mirror self, I think we could have an element for exploring the mirror self, and by understanding one's own sort of inner partner even better, I think would be fantastic. And then shadow work would be good as well, as a possibility, so there isn't so much of this like projection and hatred towards those who are in love and all that. But anyway, I'm just saying that there should be something there for singles as well. And I think this idea of incorporating mirror self exploration on that day would be a fantastic opportunity for being able to be even more acquainted with one's own inner partner. But anyway, I digress. Today, what we're doing is we're talking about the Roman pagan roots of Valentine's Day, known as Lupercalia. And it's wild. If you haven't heard of it before, I think you're going to find it very interesting, intriguing indeed, and quite different from what you may be familiar with Valentine's Day in general. So let's take a look at this here, and you can see, I don't know if you can see in this picture or not, it depicts people with whips, and you'll see that yes, there is lots of whipping involved, there's lots of blood involved, there's lots of sex involved. It's a whip-fueled bloody sexual affair. So let's just start taking a look at this. So what comes to mind when you think about the history of Valentine's Day? Saint Valentine and the lore surrounding him? To get to the heart of Valentine's Day, you actually have to reach back even further than that. So Saint Valentine was famously executed on February 14th in the 3rd century AD. However, according to, hey Lauren, thank you. According to ancient accounts, more than one Saint Valentine was executed on the same day in the same century. So Valentine's Day started as a Christian celebration of this martyrdom, fueled by romantic poets and writers, which gradually morphed into a broader celebration of love. Now, I want to say something that is interesting here, though. And this is the idea of that Christianity constantly celebrates martyrdom. And, it's fine if you want to have a day of remembrance for someone that died for something that you believed in, right? If coming from that perspective, all right, whatever. But they are so, they at least were adamant of praising martyrdom, in that many times Christians would die and become martyrs for really simple things that they did not have to die for. For example, in Rome, one of the things was just eating a piece of meat that had been sacrificed to one of the pagan gods. Like, that's all you had. You just had to eat a piece of meat. That's it. But a lot of Christians would refuse, and then they would be killed and pretty much tortured, which was horrible. But like, you could easily just do it, and you know, I'm sure if God is good, he would forgive you. But martyrdom was so praised and whatnot that people would do this, and they'd be basically dying for nothing when they didn't have to. And check out my video series on the Gospel of Judas, because the Gospel of Judas is actually an indirect attack on what would become mainstream Christianity, where in that book Jesus calls them murderers. And the reason why he's calling them murderers is because it's an allegory for praising and encouraging martyrdom. So anyway, that's an aside, but interesting enough with regard to this. So surprisingly, though, this isn't where the story begins. If you look further in history, you find that the roots of Valentine's Day might be even more shocking than the execution of saints. Ever heard of Lupercalia? If not, you're in for an entirely new perspective on Valentine's Day. Let's look at the dark, dirty origins of the world's sappiest holiday. So, in ancient Rome, Lupercalia was celebrated on February 15th every year. It was a wild pagan celebration of sex, violence, and fertility. And you're actually going to see that it seems to have a lot in common with the Dionysian mysteries. Not a lot, but it definitely is this element of exploring the shadow. And you notice it a lot, that so many of the pagan holidays and the pagan festivities were about exploring the shadow self and unleashing these unconscious urges, which is very healthy. But more often than not, these holidays became converted by religion into, instead of being something expressive, into something repressive and sanitized by constrictive religion. So what had become and started off as something where a festival was about being able to express in a cathartic release, which is a healthy thing you want to do, it became restrictive and repressive through religion. Now, scholars don't agree on whether Lupercalia directly morphed into Valentine's Day, but it's a popular theory. So yeah, they don't know for sure, right? It's not certain that this is where Valentine's Day originated, but there's evidence that it definitely could have been. It was celebrated on February 15th. We're going to see that it had to do with matchmaking in a certain sense. So you'll see all that in a moment. So it was celebrated on February 15th, and so many modern holidays are rooted in pagan traditions, just like, you know, Christmas and Saturnalia. It's easy to see why some believe there's a connection. So while our modern Valentine's Day celebration is all about gifts, dates, and candy, Lupercalia was a much earthier festivity. Historians know it was celebrated at least as early as the 6th century BC, but it's possible it's even older than that. So the word Lupercalia was derived from lupus, the Latin word for wolf. The name of the festival was probably referencing Romulus and Remus, the founders of ancient Rome, who, according to legend, were raised by a female wolf. Lupercalia is also connected with Lupercus, a Roman fertility god. So we're going to see that this holiday centering around the wolf is going to deal with fertility indeed. So how did one celebrate this Roman holiday? And you can see again in the images, I don't know, it's kind of small for you to see, but there is lots of whipping involved. So how did one celebrate? Well, the tradition involved a lot of blood, a lot of gratuitous sex, so don't try this at home. Well, I mean, I've been to some parties where... Well, we won't talk about that. So the festival began at the Lupercal cave, which was believed to have been the home of the wolf that raised Romulus and Remus. The Luperci, the priests, or the Luperci, the priests of Lupercus, got naked. Okay, so all right, so here we go. All right. Let's. So it begins. It's in a cave. All right, this Lupercal cave, this cave of the wolf, home of the wolf that raised Romulus and Remus. So this wolf cave of the wolf. And so the wolfen priests, the Luperci, they got naked. Then they slaughtered male goats and a dog in the cave. Now, look, I'm not saying I endorse this, all right? I'm vegan. I follow transitional veganism. I don't endorse the slaughtering of animals, okay? So I'm by all means, don't think that I am endorsing Lupercalia, but we're exploring it and we're seeing what it was about and what happened. So you have the priests, the good old wolf priests. They got naked. They stripped down to the bone. The wolf's dog bone. And they slaughtered some goats and dogs, and then they ritualistically smeared themselves with blood in the process. So they covered themselves, they got naked, covered themselves in blood. So now you have these bloody wolfen priests, and then they skinned the goats and took a nude tour around Rome's Palatine Hill. So they got nude, and they went into Rome, and they started going around Rome. And it says they started hitting women with strips of fresh goat skin. And the two paintings above depict this celebration. That's where the whips come in. Now, let me say this right off the bat, because that doesn't sound too good, going around hitting women with what do they say? With strips of fresh goat skin. But let me give you a different tell you here that it's very unlikely when you look at Lupercalia, it's very unlikely that these whips they made actually hurt. They were probably a lot more for just like a symbol. They probably didn't hurt because when you look at like the history of Lupercalia, it always talks about people laughing in the streets and having a good time. And it doesn't say anywhere about people getting hurt or being in pain or anything like that. So yeah, they did go around hitting women, but it was most likely, not something that actually hurt. It was just more of a part of the festival, part of the, like pinching someone on St. Patrick's Day or whatever. And also, we also know that it probably wasn't painful, or because the women would want this to happen. They would actually like go up to the priests and be like, "Hey, whip me." So yeah, it wasn't this terrible thing as far as we know. Because if it's right here, if you were one of the lucky ladies who got smacked with the animal skins, you would now be more fertile, or so they believed. So yeah, they believed that if you got hit by the goat skins or the whips, you would be more fertile. And I believe that they also believed that childbirth would be less painful. So it was a good thing. It was all in good fun. They wanted to, I still don't condone, just to be clear, don't go murder goats and dogs and start whipping people with bloody skin. Don't do that, okay? But I'm just telling you what happened. So the ritual might also have been connected in some way to the sexual goat god Pan, who, according to Ovid, was also celebrated during Lupercalia. So some historians even think that Lupercalia had a matchmaking element. So, and this is interesting. So in Lupercalia, they believed that it's most likely the case where they would have a big jar, and women would write their names on the jar, and they would put their names in the jar. And then men would come up, and they'd mix the names around, and they'd pull the name out. And then so whoever they pulled would become sort of their partner for the rest of the festival, but a sexual partner. So it was sort of like it says here, like a sex lottery. All right, the women would put their name in, they draw, and you get partnered with someone, and then they would be your sexual partner for the remainder of the festival. So not a terrible thing to be single if you're celebrating Lupercalia, because that's. But as it says here, sometimes the couple would only stay for the festival, but occasionally the match would lead to marriage. So yeah, this is kind of like, I guess pagan Roman Tinder. You pick a random person, kind of like a fling. But hey, sometimes they fall in love, sometimes they get married, and and sometimes not. So, and of course, since few pagan celebrations were complete without a feast, the Feast of Lupercalia followed the ritual sacrifice. Yeah, so as you can see, quite different from how Valentine's Day is celebrated today. You know, instead of giving each other cards, there was a sex lottery, and centered around fertility, centered around, and you can see, right? You can see how again, there's a lot of expressive elements of the shadow self and a lot of release. Again, there's a lot of things I don't condone in it. I don't think we should start killing animals. That's horrible. But you know, for the time it was in, you can see what they were doing and what they were the point of their celebration is. So now if we look at its connection to Valentine's, right? So these days, you'd be hard pressed to convince anyone to join a Lupercalia festival, complete with animal sacrifices and random sex. Well, no, I'm just kidding. I like animals. Okay, it's a joke. But let's see. I'm just thinking. I've been to some clubs where there's gets pretty bloody. There's no dead animals though. It's usually it's all consensual, and there's no animal abuse involved. That's horrible. I just want to be clear. The reason why I'm being clear is because people are crazy and they're gonna be like, oh, Iberians sacrifice animals. We promote veganism, okay? We don't. This is not. No, stop. Anyway, let's see. Okay, so still a few traces of the ancient festival remain in our Valentine's Day celebrations. So, for example, the signature red and white colors of Valentine's Day might symbolize the blood of the sacrifice and the milk the priests used to ritualistically clean it up. So that's what they would do is after they were covered in blood, they would use milk to cleanse themselves. Oh, hey, Jennifer and John. Thank you for the stars. I appreciate it. So some people think that the red and white colors of Valentine's Day represent the blood and the milk of Lupercalia. So, of course, the most obvious link is the sexual matchmaking and Valentine's Day's romantic focus. So Lupercalia's take on the theme was just a little more intense. So, right, today it's more to do with couples exchanging cards and celebrating their love. And back then, instead, you had these slips of paper that were exchanged for sexual matchmaking for the festival. However, even in ancient Rome, Lupercalia grew tamer over the years. People gradually started leaving their clothes on during the celebration. And animal sacrifice was also eventually prohibited. Well, that's a good thing. Good on the Romans for that. It was Pope Gelasius who finally abolished the celebration altogether. God damn it, why had the Pope got to ruin all the fun? To this day, historians still debate the precise link between Lupercalia and Valentine's. But even if Lupercalia didn't directly morph into Valentine's, it certainly provides some very interesting context. When you think about what the ancient Romans were doing at this time, thousands of years ago, you get quite an interesting new perspective on what we do now. While people continue to celebrate many pagan holidays, Lupercalia, understandably, isn't one of them. It's just a little easier to sell people on chocolates and flowers than goat sacrifices and nude beatings. Now, see, I don't... Right, like, all right, take the animal element out of it. There's nothing wrong with a little consensual BDSM and sexual fling from time to time. So, you know, don't gotta be hating too much here. But so that's Lupercalia festival, and you can see how it does have a lot of similarities to Valentine's Day in certain themes. And again, I think that Valentine's is great. Well, not all right. I'm reluctant to say great. I think the idea of Valentine's Day I like, not the way that religiosity and capitalism has sort of taken it. But a day as for people who are in love to express their love to each other and celebrate that, I like that. I think that's cool. However, I do think that there should be an element for those who don't have a partner or partners to be able to perhaps explore their mirror self, or maybe even bring back some elements of, you know, the not the negative elements, but some form of Lupercalia that's expressive and important for those who could, because it does suck if on Valentine's, for those who are single, not to be able to have you know, it can be a difficult day if one is single. And I know a lot of people don't. They just look at it as a day of love in general, so you can express love to your friends and family. And I do think that that's really cool. But I do understand there are a lot of single people who do get bitter on Valentine's Day, and I do get it. So I really think that we could have a day that is about celebrating love, but also has elements for those, you know, to explore the mirror self. I think it's a fantastic way to explore the mirror self, or opportunity to explore the mirror self, and also introduce maybe some fun, you know, BDSM-esque elements in, or some sort of exploratory elements for those who want to let off some shadow and have some fun as well. So that is the Roman pagan origin of Valentine's, Lupercalia. So tell me, what do you think? What do you prefer? Tell me what you think. What do you think? Are you team Valentine's or are you team Lupercalia? Let me know. I want to give a big shout out to everyone who supports on Patreon, especially Cassidy, Alana, Renaissance Fairy, Michael, Evie, Alan, Angela, and Slipfox Socks. Thank you so much. If you ever feel like you've learned something or gotten something from my videos, consider supporting on Patreon. I help you out, you help me out, we can help the world out, and I really appreciate it because of all the censorship and craziness that goes on Facebook and YouTube. You get access to our weekly secret live streams, our hidden Discord server, the Citadel, and the link will pop up right over here somewhere. And thank you very much. I appreciate it.